Yep. So yeah, wanted to give people a status of where we are, especially as we have our second vendor online now. So yeah, I've got a few pretty slides here and walk you through it. So I think everyone's aware Artemis 3 and 4 is with SpaceX and their Starship. We're well underway on that mission, headed towards CDR. Got the deployed payloads awarded for that mission for development. So getting exciting there, getting those teams on board and talking with our suit vendor and where they'll be stowed and where they'll be, how they'll be deployed, how far away, all those good details. And then, yeah, Artemis 5 awarded to Blue Origin not too long ago. They're behind in the awards, so we're still working on the details of what their interfaces look like. But we got these first three missions underway. Next slide. Yep. So I'll give you the big picture here. Artemis is a complicated program. We got a lot going on, from the launch vehicle and Orion, surface ops with the suits. Gateway will come online at Artemis 4 and gain more capability over time, including an airlock for EVAs down the line. Ground systems to get us off the ground. We talk a lot about space comm and how much bandwidth we're going to get down. That's important for our payloads and our EVAs, getting good imagery and data back. Surface mobility, we just awarded LTV 3 different contracts. They'll be under this study phase for about a year, and then we'll down select for the actual mission. They'll be there not for Artemis 3, but for the later missions, and they'll enable uncrewed science in between missions, and then we'll be able to expand our range and capability when crew are there. Suits, we have Axiom under contract for Artemis 3, and then Collins is under contract for the ISS replacement, but they're also both looking at crossover contracts, so Collins could be a lunar surface suit in the future. And then, yeah, we get more complicated from there. We had pressurized rovers and habitats and other things down the line. Next slide. So hopefully we all watched the Artemis 1 launch. That was exciting. Artemis 2 here is coming up. We know the crew and name for that, so that's really great, especially because one of them is from my alma mater of NC State. Get to see her go to the moon. And like I said, Artemis 3, 4, and 5 are there. Artemis 4 shows that first gateway integration where they have their power and propulsion element and the halo, which is the SLS or HLS will dock to that with a logistics module. We can enable some more different capabilities as far as how we get hardware there. Whereas on the first mission, pretty much all the hardware launches on HLS from Earth. And so we'll have some more flexibility as we get Gateway online. Next slide. And so just looking at the HLS portion, I wanted to highlight that we have uncrewed demos that are required under our contract. So first time we land on the moon with these vehicles, which are a little bit bigger than Apollo, won't be the first time those vehicles land. So Artemis 3, before that, we'll have SpaceX Starship land uncrewed. It should be a pretty similar looking vehicle. It won't have the same crew cabin and the same suits and things on board, of course, but proving that really risky part of the mission of being able to land is really important. And same with Artemis 5. So we'll have the Blue Origin, Blue Moon lander land uncrewed ahead of that mission. Next slide. So just a little bit more about Starship. I think we're pretty well aware now. We have done 3 flight tests. I say they have done 3 flight tests, which are always exciting to watch. Getting progressively more complicated, more interesting. And the 4th one's coming up here pretty soon. We had a little bit of capability, well, maybe a little bit more than little, between Artemis 3 and 4. The idea between Artemis 3 was always, very first time going back to the moon. Let's kind of get it done as simply as we can. And Artemis 4, we add a little bit more science capability, gateway involvement, some other things. Yeah, I mentioned the uncrewed demo and everything. So move on to the next slide. If you're unfamiliar with the ConOps, we're doing a little bit different than Apollo. And we're doing it because we're adding so much more capability. This is a much bigger vehicle, way more capable than Apollo. It's going to the South Pole, which is a trickier part and a little bit harder to get to than Apollo, and has a lot of advantages, especially when it comes to how much calm and sunlight you get at various points along the South Pole, and access to some interesting science in these permanently shattered craters. but you need to do some tanking con-ops. So we're doing cryogenic fuel transfer in Earth orbit before we commit the crew. Okay, so we launch a tanker, we fill that up with a number of we launch a depot. We fill it up with a number of tankers, and they go up and down. SpaceX is going to be able to turn those around and build a whole bunch of them really fast. If you've been watching what's going on at Starbase, and then once that propellant is filled, then we launch the lander again with no people on board. Fill that up with propellant. That travels to the moon and does a checkout there, make sure it's good to go, and only then do we commit crew for launch on SLS Orion. And then Orion gets there, docks with Starship. We transfer 2 crew to Starship. Suits and everything are already on board. We do checkouts of the suits and things now that crew are there, and they go land on the moon. They go do their great service mission, which is of course near and dear to my heart. And then we come back up, get back in Orion, bring our samples back, and then go home. So just some progress on Starship. Always good, pretty pictures. I was just out in Hawthorne a couple weeks ago for their elevator demo. So we got a pressurized Axiom suit inside the elevator airlock garage mock-up, full-scale mock-up that SpaceX has right across the street from their main building. First time where we got those 2 systems together like that. We've done a bunch of checkouts with, they call them Hollywood suits, where they kind of mimic the functionality of a suit and the limited mobility you get. Right, you can't see all around you, you can't move your arms everywhere. So getting the suit on and getting through the hatch and walking through the garage and onto the elevator, all knowing what that limited mobility is really important. But this time we did it with actual pressurized suits, which was really important with crew inside. We learned a lot about everything from button placement to what it would be like to have an incapacitated crew and what you have to do to get them back inside and safe. Of course, docking systems are really important. That's how we get the crew to the surface and back with Orion. And SpaceX is working on a version of their Dragon docking system, but modified for Starship. And then I talked about these integrated flight tests. We're 3 down and a bunch more to go. We got propellant transfer milestones coming up. A lot of good technology that's going to get developed to enable this first mission. And yeah, Blue Moon as the newer player looks a little bit different, right? So it's not quite as tall, and the crew cabin is down on the ground there as opposed to way up top. We don't have to have a big long elevator ride to the surface. It's a good bit different from their design in the base period. So the 2020 period where we had all 3 vendors working in parallel. They took a lot of lessons learned from that and then applied it, and this is their vehicle. So yeah, they're on track for Artemis 5. Using a bunch of partners. They got Draper, Boeing, Astrobotic, Honeybee, all the big partnership, meeting our sustained requirement set, which is, like I said, it's a little more than the Artemis 3, more baseline requirements, and they'll be there for Artemis 5. Yeah. Next slide. Their ConOps is similar but different, right? They have refuelers and transporters that they're going to launch to Earth orbit. And once that's refueled, they'll launch the crewed lander. It'll dock and go to the Earth Moon orbit, Moon NRHO. It'll dock with Gateway this time, as opposed to just docking straight with Orion. Once it checks out, while docked to Gateway, we'll commit the crew again. Orion docks up with Gateway. We do any logistics transfers and things while all co-manifested or co-docked, and it goes to the surface, does the mission, and comes back up and comes home. And then they'll be able to reuse their refueler and transporter elements for later missions. Just some progress here for the blue side of things. If you live in Huntsville like I do, I'm really happy to hear that the big engine stand that was used in Apollo is up and running now. We get a lot of explosions from the Army blowing things up, and now we get rocket engine firings every now and then, which has been great. So they're doing a lot of engine testing here on that historic stand, and also smaller engine testing for their horizontal stand that's been going on for a long time. And if you saw their New Glenn vehicle, which is the launch vehicle that they're going to develop for this mission, they've done some testing out of the Cape now, showing how big that thing is. It's a lot bigger than New Shepard, and yeah, we're excited to see that thing get some progress and get some launches under its belt, like Starship has. Next slide. And this is my last slide, and we have a lot of plans in the future. Like I said, LTV's been awarded. We got habitats in the plans, pressurized rovers, and this is a good idea of what the South Pole looks like. It's going to look really strange based on where the sun is and where the shadows are. And yeah, it's an exciting place to be for the next few years. That's all I got.